the platform at all to being a LinkedIn top voice in 2018 and 2019. And the way LinkedIn top voices work is the LinkedIn editors, these are for the not famous people. There are some famous people, and then for other people who are not famous, they look at who's contributing, who's stimulating conversations, and they nominate people as LinkedIn top voices. And that's how I got the nomination in 2018 and 2019. So I'm going to share my experience. The other thing I've had to do is, as Sarah and Caroline mentioned, I set up a company a couple of years ago called the Reignite Academy, which is actually helping women go back to their careers in law. And I knew that I had the same issue all over again. As a small startup, we had no PR budget. And within a year, we'd been named as the FT European Innovative Lawyer Awards winner for diversity and inclusion. And I have to say that most of our PR activity has happened on this platform. So I think the summary of that is that I think I've got some useful information to share. So a bit of a quiz for you, first of all. Do you know how many unique, you don't have to answer this now, but how many unique users on LinkedIn? Do you know what proportion are female versus male? Do you understand the difference between an article and a post? Do you understand the difference between following someone and connecting with them? And could you name one factor that will impact how LinkedIn either promotes or conversely ignores the content you share? Questions 3, 4, and 5 I'm going to cover later on in this session, but just to give you some of the stats, and I think so this is probably out of date because I wrote it a few months ago. We're probably approaching 700 million users, and it's pretty much 50-50 male, female. Almost half of them are very active. So some people just go on there and leave their profile and don't do anything, but a good 40 to 50% do actually use it. They use it for sharing information. They use it for improving their knowledge. So it is quite an active, fertile ground for conversations. I think the most important thing is that a lot of decision makers and influencers use it, much more so than Instagram. I mean, people use Instagram to look at what influencers are wearing, but from a business perspective, LinkedIn is much more where it's at. Not that many users share content each week, and if you do want to make this a platform where you start to stand out, what I've learned is that sharing content is what helps with that, if you know what content to share and how to make it accessible for people. And finally, you know, it's useful for B2B leads, and people use it to find and screen people. So what I always say to people, if anybody comes to me and says they're looking for a job and they're not on LinkedIn, then the first thing I tell them to do is get themselves on there. Just one thing I'm not going to focus on too much because it's not the topic of this conversation, but I just want to put a note out there about your personal brand. I love this quote from Jeff Bezos, which is, your brand is what someone says about you when you're not in the room. And what I've found from a personal and business perspective, LinkedIn has been fabulous for helping us build our brand, helping me build my personal brand, and helping me build the brand of those companies that I'm involved in, She's Back and LinkedIn. And when I think about brand, I'm thinking not just about your reputation, so what are you known for, but also your reach. How many people know that you're known for that? And when you're thinking about, from a business perspective, how to use LinkedIn, my advice is to think both about building your reputation and your reach. So some of the things that LinkedIn's helped me do, and I'll talk a little bit about this and then go through some building blocks for you. So when I set up She's Back, we needed to do some research to prove that I had this theory that there were thousands of women like me who'd had career breaks and wanted to go back and get their careers back on track, but just somehow couldn't. And I needed to prove that. And we set up a SurveyMonkey survey with about 20 questions on it. And we ended up with almost 1,400 responses. And LinkedIn was a really important platform for me, finding a way of getting to the influencers, getting to people who could fill that research in. So it was very good from that perspective when I first set up She's Back. It helped me sell a book. I think, you know, if anybody's ever written a book, you get all excited about writing the book and you focus all your creative energies into getting the words there. But what people fail to think about is how they're going to sell the book. Not just in week one, when you have a lovely book launch and all your friends come and everybody buys a copy, but how is it still going to be sold 3 months down the line, 6 months down the line, 2 years down the line. And because it's a great platform for sharing content, what I was able to do is take some messages and chapters and themes from my book and share that as individual pieces of content that then drive traffic towards actually selling the book itself. So it's helpful from that perspective. I've built my personal brand, which I'll talk about a bit later. I've built my business brands, enlisted some ambassadors. With Reignite Academy, our business model is that we have law firms become members, and then we place people back into the member firms. When we set up, nobody did that. So you didn't get people thinking, oh, I know, I want to reignite my legal career, I'll go to the Reignite Academy. So we had to find candidates and get the message out that we were here and we're active, and LinkedIn was very, very important for doing that. We amplified our message, avoiding PR costs. I think our PR spend has been about, actually we haven't had any PR spend, thinking about it, because we use LinkedIn to amplify our message. It used to be, certainly when I was Director of Brand and Communication at Deloitte, if you wanted to publish an article somewhere and have people read it, you really were dependent on having a really good PR team or a really good contact with a journalist. That is no longer the case. If you can create good content, this is a platform that enables you to share your content and bypass the journalists, the editors, the PR teams that are trying to control the funnel of your content through to an audience. So if you get it right, you can get direct to the audience. It helps us connect with clients. We've recruited for our team. And I think the last thing I'd say, what you might not automatically think about, it's a really good place for learning and developing, because other people are sharing really relevant content that you can go and find. So just to give you a few examples. So in terms of finding candidates, this is an example of what we did here. We did a post with a photograph. What I've also noticed about LinkedIn is that if you share really nice photographs, nice images, that attracts people to look at your content. So, and just a very detailed tip, this post actually had a link to our website where people could apply if they wanted to apply. If you write your post and you include that link, the picture that comes up will be automatically what you see when you click on the link, which for us was our website wasn't very engaging. So what I did was I used a photograph of the last Reignite cohort and put that in the post first before them writing the content, because then your photograph overrides the link. Detail point. We also recruited for our team. We decided in April last year that we needed to have someone join the team. And we were thinking about how to find them. And actually, all we did was put a couple of posts on LinkedIn saying, we're looking for someone to join us. Sharon had been following us. She messaged me direct on LinkedIn saying, I'm really interested. We had 2 phone calls and she was recruited. I think it was the fastest, cheapest recruitment we've ever done. The role of ambassadors. So this is an example of, I'd done this post here. I think it was saying my husband's finally taken paternity leave 17 years on, and it got quite a lot of views. But Tracy Gunn is someone who works in Southern Ireland, in Ireland, with women who are returning to work after career break. She does a lot of maternity coaching. She follows me on LinkedIn, and I'd gone and done a book talk over in Ireland. And because she follows me on LinkedIn, whilst I'd got something like, I don't know, 10,000 views of that post, because she then shared it, I got all of her, people who followed her also saw it. So that's what I mean by thinking about how to amplify your voice. If you get people following you and being ambassadors for you, they can help amplify your voice. And finally, if you've got a point of view and it's interesting and you share that content, it's a really good way of spreading your message, of getting your point across. So the red arrow is meant to show down there that this particular article got over 16,000 views. And what I was basically saying was, when you're in an interview and people ask you about your career break, here's what to say. And obviously it was something people were interested in. I never quite know which posts are going to be really popular and what aren't. But that had a really nice image, a very, very clear title, and obviously it struck a chord. Okay. So just going back to, whoops. What I would say about all of these things, I didn't do all of those things all at the same time. I first of all used it to conduct research and build a brand. I later used it to sell my book. Later on, it was about amplifying our message. And that's all connected with myself, where I was in my journey, not to sound like a reality TV show person. But so before you're thinking about what you want to do, I just encourage you to think about, what are your personal objectives? What are you trying to achieve over the next 6 to 12 months? Are you trying to build your own brand? Are you building a business? Are you trying to sell a book? What is it you want to get out of the platform? Otherwise, there's so much you can do. You could just end up being a bit of a busy fool. So think about your personal objectives. Then what I'm going to talk about is some building blocks for you to help develop your profile and your following on LinkedIn. And the first one, the base, is thinking about your profile and your brand, which is about your area of expertise and your interest. And that has to be really clear. So, and I'll talk about what that means, but it's very easy to just go on there, put a picture up, give yourself a title, fill in your educational history, and all you look like, say you're a commercial lawyer, you just look like any other commercial lawyer on there. So you have to really think about and spend time on your profile and brand. What I found helpful then is, if it is about personal brand, is what is your point of view? What are the things you're going to talk about, and what's the point of view you have on them? Why would anybody want to listen to you? What are you interested in, and why are you interesting? And that helps then you also build a network. I personally think it's really important when you're sharing content, when you're posting, to develop an authentic tone of voice. It's really clear to me when you might have some very senior person who's posting on LinkedIn or sharing content, and actually the person doing it is their PA, because it's really bland, it doesn't sound like them, it's not interesting, there's no personality behind it. As a platform, it's not particularly beautiful, it's not nicely designed, it is a bit clunky. So it's really important, I think, to build your own personality, because LinkedIn's not going to do that for you as a platform. You have to think about that, and that is about your tone of voice. With all of that in place, it's then possible for you to think about sharing new content, which is what you've produced, and sharing content that other people have produced. And finally, it's all about, with all of that, having activity and presence. So if you want to use it, it's not enough just to go in and do the bottom box, which is your profile and brand. You've got to do all of the other boxes as well. And I'll talk a little bit about each box now. Unless, Sarah, do you want to take any questions so far, or shall I just keep going?
Caroline, you're collating the questions. Do you want to interject there and ask any?
Yeah, there's only one question in so far, but we can deal with it now. So Charlotte asks, how frequently should you post or share on LinkedIn? How frequently should you link a unique blog post that you have personally written? And is there an ideal amount of hashtags, or do they work to get in front of the right people?
In terms of how frequently you post, if you're going to be active, I think you need to do 2 or 3 things a week, whether that's sharing content or creating new content. I think to be active, you've got to be there fairly. If you want to build a profile there, you've got to be reasonably active. In terms of hashtags, I honestly don't know. I tend to just use maybe 3 or 4, because I think it gets just looks a bit weird if you've just got tons and tons of hashtags at the end of a post. It looks a bit desperate. It looks as though you're not confident enough in your own content that you've had to use tons of hashtags personally, but I don't know that. That's just a personal point of view. But I think if you want to use it, you have to be reasonably active.
Lisa, can I ask you a follow-up to that? In terms of who you should tag, as in, obviously sometimes you want to be paying credit or thanking someone or something like that. Presumably that's a good thing. But again, does it sometimes look just like a sort of list of credits?
I think if you're tagging somebody because you want to say thank you, it's absolutely fine. LinkedIn is really odd. Sometimes, even though like you and I are connected, I've tried to tag you in a few posts, it just will not let me, and I can't figure out why. And I think that's just gremlins in their system. And I think sometimes if you say you're asking a question and you know somebody else might have a point, them and ask them to contribute to the debate. I think that if you're doing it and you're doing it genuinely, that's fine. What I personally can't stand is when people write content and they want to get more people to view it, so they tag me, and then I got all these blooming notifications that somebody's liked a post I'm tagged in, and I've had nothing to do with it, and it's just people using my profile to try and get traction for their content. I think tagging people, if it's authentic, you want to involve them, you want to thank them, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. Shall I carry on?
Yes, carry on. There's oh, hang on. I think this means what day of the week is it best to post?
You know what? I would say Tuesdays and Thursdays are really good. However, there have been occasions when I've just posted something on a Friday evening or a Sunday evening, and I thought, oh well, I just had to get that off my chest, and nobody's going to see it, and they get really, really popular. So I don't know. Generally, I'd say, you know, Tuesdays, Thursdays during the day, but hey, if you've got something really interesting, it will get traction once you've built up your following.
Okay, that's it for the moment, I think. All right. Thank you.
So in terms of some top tips on your own profile, use a professional photograph. You must have heard this a million times. But the other thing is, on LinkedIn, behind your profile, there's an oblong box. It's really annoying because it's oblong, and therefore it's sometimes hard to find the right image. But use that image, and I'll give you you saw mine. Mine has an image of a stack of my books. It's a it's space that is there for you to use. It's for free, so don't just stick with the blue oblong. Think about what you want. Make your title meaningful. The about section, going back to what I talked about in terms of personal brand, your about section is your elevator pitch. Again, if you want to use LinkedIn to build your brand, it's just such a waste of space only putting commercial director or head of retail for BHS, for M&S or whatever. It's opportunity for you to say something about yourself. So really think about that and put some time into it. You can use some multimedia clips. You can link to projects, videos. It's actually quite good for that. So it's not just about recreating your CV. In terms of your experience and employers, keywords, beneath that, unlike a CV, there's no limit to what you can put in there. And if we were talking about job searching, I'd mentioned that it's an opportunity there to talk about all of your experience, use the keywords that employers are going to be putting in when they're searching for people with your experience, so that you are searchable and you're findable. Same applies to your key skills. Look at settings. So have a think about one of the things you can do. Say you want to be an expert in well, let's say like women returning to work in the workplace. What you might want to do is turn off the option where LinkedIn will, if somebody's searching for women experts in the workplace, when people find you, they will also find a lot of people that are like you, because LinkedIn says viewers also viewed. You can turn that off so that instead it takes people to a different place, so you're not sort of sending them directly to your competitors. You can turn on or off whether you're looking for a job, whether you're looking for a job. Obviously, if you're in employment, you probably want to have that off, but it means that you don't, in your profile, you don't necessarily have to write seeking a new opportunity. You can just toggle the option to show that as in your settings. And the other thing you can do is you can choose if you're in visible or private mode. So if you say you want to improve your profile, and what you're going to do is you're going to look at other people who've got a similar profile to you and see if there's ideas that you can nab, which is absolutely fine. You might want to do that in private mode so that they can't see you've been looking at their profile. Otherwise, they get a notification saying Lisa Unwin has reviewed your profile. At the same time, you might actually want people to see that they've viewed your profile. you've viewed their profile, because you might be open to a conversation. So just think about whether you want to be invisible or private mode when you're mooching around on the site. Join groups. I've found groups have been mixed. I don't think groups on LinkedIn are as useful as they are on Facebook, but I haven't written them off. So occasionally I think it is worth joining groups. What I've noticed is that it's more of a personal site than it is an organizational site. So I've got a friend, for example, who runs a photographic agency, and she didn't know whether she should be investing most of her efforts in her organization's page or her personal page. And we spent some time working through it and concluded that actually LinkedIn was about her as an individual, and she can post, you know, photographs of some of the beautiful work that her photographers have done. She can still post that on her personal page, but it's about her and her personality. And her LinkedIn page is for the organization is a bit redundant because it was starting to replicate her website, and a website was actually much more important from an organizational perspective. So, and I personally find it really difficult to keep up with the Reignite Academy page and my own personal page. And so what I do is I focus on my personal page, and that's where I post most content. If I had a team of 6 working in my social media team, I might do both, but I haven't. So that's personally I found more helpful. Either Tracy or Caroline, sorry, Caroline or Sarah mentioned this earlier on. You can personalize your LinkedIn URL. And I'll show you how to do this in a moment. So mine is Lisa and Win Reignite Academy. Sarah, I think yours was, oh no, it's Caroline RHC. It just makes you look as though you know what you're doing a little bit more. And you can put that on then on your footer of your emails. Make sure you include visual content. As I said, it's quite a clunky site. It's not beautiful. That doesn't mean you can't make it beautiful, but you just need to put a bit more effort in. And make sure you put some evidence of your amazing activity on there. Just give you some examples of that. So this is, if you can see, the edit,